When we began the series, two ways that I defined prayer was one as communion with God, and two as crying out to God to come through on his promises, namely his promises of salvation. And this is precisely what Jesus is praying and instructing us to pray. We're invited to pray for God's kingdom and will, God's rule and reign, God's love and loving kindness to take up residence, to incarnate in the lives of humanity and in humanity's collective lives. That's what we're invited to pray. We've got a problem. There's a but that's here. There's a reality check for us. And that's this. What do we do with the ongoing presence of things that aren't as God intended? What do we do with the existence of another kingdom, not God's kingdom? What do we do with pandemics and violence? What do we do with injustice and poverty? Marks of a kingdom that display the antithesis of God's kingdom of embrace and justice and healing. Now, I know that we're in the season of Lent, the time leading up to Easter, but I want you to think back to Christmas. During the Christmas season, the days leading up to Christmas, the season that we call Advent, often at Christ City, we talk about the truth that we are living in between the two Advents. The first Advent, the first Christmas when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and then the second Advent when Jesus will return again, when he will finally and fully complete what was initiated on the cross and in the resurrection. And right now, we live between these two great moments. Theologians often talk about this or refer to this as the already not yet. The kingdom is already here. It's not yet here. The kingdom is here. Jesus did usher in the new kingdom with his arrival. The kingdom of God is breaking into our world, and it is not yet. The fullest version of it, the fullest manifestation of God's kingdom is still on the horizon. When Jesus talked about the kingdom, he often used parables, like the two parables that were read earlier in the service. These parables are intended to describe what the kingdom is like and what the characteristics of the kingdom are. In the parables in Matthew 13, just a few chapters after the Lord's Prayer, the kingdom is likened to a mustard seed and to yeast, something that's small, it might even be unobservable, but given time, given space, given work, given prayer, it grows into something that sustains life and holds life. Jesus is telling us that the kingdom that he is inaugurating, that it's like that. Now, this would have been nearly unimaginable to the first hearers, and it might be unimaginable to us as well, because kingdoms don't arrive like that. They don't arrive unnoticed and unassuming. They storm into town with fanfare and regal and violence. But there's another kingdom that's present. There's an enemy to God's kingdom that's not keen to release his stronghold. And we see the presence of this ungodly kingdom in injustice and racism and violence and school-to-prison pipelines and inadequate housing and unjust economies and any other number of ways that the enemy looks to mar and mangle the image of God and people. Earlier this week, when the pastors were talking through this text in our weekly sermon planning meeting, I asked my pastor, Justin, what do you do with the reality of the already not yet aspects of God's kingdom, especially in the presence of so much sorrow? And in his wisdom, Justin thought for a minute, he leaned back in his chair, and he used this thing with his lips where when he's thinking real hard. And he said, what we have to do in those moments is we got to keep looking, got to keep praying, we have to keep working. We got to keep looking. Don't stop looking for the kingdom. Keep your eyes open and peeled for the signs of life amidst the death, for the signs of resurrection amidst the crucifixions that are all around us. Got to keep looking. We got to keep praying. That's part of why Jesus instructs us in this way, to ensure that we will continue to pray for God's kingdom to come and God's will to be done. We have to keep praying with our eyes open and our eyes closed. We got to keep working, but not working on our own, but working in community so that we can bear witness to God's ongoing and breaking goodness to one another. We have to continue in the work of God's kingdom and continue in the testifying to one another to the places where we see God's kingdom breaking into the world. Got to keep looking. Got to keep praying. Got to keep working.